Welcome to the Cash Flow Project Podcast. Are you looking to better your financial situation by increasing your cash flow? Too busy to hunt for real estate deals or don't know where to start? Then you're in the right spot. Join us as we dive in and talk about investing for cash flow using multifamily real estate.
Welcome to the Cash Flow Project Podcast. I'm your host, Steve Pieros with Tri-City Equity Group. Today, super excited, we've got Patryk Swietek on the show. Patryk, is that right too? Am I pronouncing that right? I actually never asked you how you pronounce your last name.
You're pronouncing it so wrong, man. It's ridiculous. No, I'm just kidding. No, you're pronouncing it the right way in American standards, right? Yeah, when it comes to Polish standards, it's a whole nother level. It's actually Patryk Swietek, and I don't expect anybody to pronounce it, so don't worry about that.
Right on. Well, Patryk, I'm glad to have him on the show. To our audience that may not be familiar with him, is a young, definitely a successful go-getter. I've had the pleasure of having contact with Patryk at multiple conferences and online forums and whatnot around the country. So I've met him in person multiple times. So a little bit about his background. At the age of 14, he founded his first tech company. Since then, he's been making strides in business in general. He's a real estate investor, currently owns 6 short-term rentals and manages 20 others for investors. He's operating over in the Joshua Tree area there in California. He's also the founder of STR Nation, a company that educates other investors on how to become financially free through real estate investing. And he's passionate about helping a specific demographic. So this is helping millennials and Gen Z, finding their way out to financial freedom. So, Patryk, and I'm not going to try to pronounce it the way you did, but welcome to the show.
Yeah, thanks, man. I appreciate it. Thanks for having me, and I'm excited to dive in.
Yeah, absolutely. And I'm glad you're on to make some time with us today. Well, so for those of our audience that may not be familiar with you or haven't had the pleasure of kind of meeting you the way I have, give us a little bit about your background. You're a relatively young guy. Give us some story and kind of what brought you into real estate, how you got to the point that you're at, and obviously making big strides on the on the business front, real estate front.
Yeah. And before we really even get into that, I do want to say that, Steve and I have had some great conversations, and I feel like we can talk for hours. It's one of those things where we're just like caught up in the convo. We realize, wow, the conference is over. People are walking out. Maybe we should walk out. So really appreciate that. And that's why I'm excited to really dive into all of this stuff with you and everyone that's listening. It's going to be kind of like a sneak peek into just Steve and I chatting. So that's going to be really cool. So basically, yeah, my background is very tech oriented. Long story short, built my first company at age 14. I sold it at 18. I was making around $40,000 a year doing that. I had 10 staffers. I was already building teams at that point. So I really got a lot of education around building teams, building structure, how to motivate people, how to lead people, how to do all of those things. And I thought that those were the things that colleges were going to look for. And I was gung-ho about going to Columbia, going to Harvard, going to all these big schools. Oh, they love me. Like I did all these real world things, and they're going to appreciate that. Turns out they actually care more about grades, and they were just like, okay, yeah, you're not valuable. So that's at least what I was in my mind, because that's what we were tested on, right, as kids. So I realized, okay, well, maybe this is like a fish trying to climb a tree. So I'm going to go and swim in the waters, right? So I started doing more entrepreneurial stuff. I still went to school. I still wanted to prove myself and graduated, got a 4.0 from University of Illinois, Champaign. It's a big school, big top 10 business school, that kind of thing. Proved myself. But really, I hated it. And quite frankly, I started a bunch of tech companies, loved it, didn't really work out, but I got venture capital raised. I did all sorts of fun stuff there, which is really, really cool experience. Now, basically, try to go into the corporate route once these startups didn't work out, right? And going into corporate, I realized that corporate's really not for me. First few jobs, I couldn't even hold a job. I actually got This might even be a record. I'm gonna check Guinness World Book of Records for this. I got fired 3 times in 1 year. So I don't know if that's like that's definitely not normal. So I did that, and I realized I actually went through a moment where I didn't know who I was. I took so many personality tests and try to figure out what the hell is wrong with me. Turns out that I don't really function well in a role that's not a manager role, basically. I don't like being told what to do all the time, or have other people dictate my schedule or what I have. And even if I do, it's unnatural to me, right? So I can do it, but it comes unnaturally. Like I question things. I question why processes go a certain way. Instead of doing the actual job, which is what they want you to do, I'm like, oh, but why? Why are we doing this? What's the goal around this? Oh no, just shut up and do your job. So learn a lot there, man.
Yeah, no, it definitely sounds like it. So, I mean, did you come from? I mean, now you started pretty early. I mean, 14, where you're already kind of venturing out and try to start, your own business and having people under you. I mean, do you come from a family that's business minded and kind of has that entrepreneurial background, or like what? How
Yeah.
did you get started so early? Like, what planted those seeds? That's like I said, that's pretty young.
Yeah. So I think here's the one big thing, and I think about things really deeply on how, like, Steve, me and you have conversations about how you raise your kids. And I don't even have kids, but I always think so far in ahead because I want to be prepared for everything. And I think I have this philosophy and hypothesis that's backed by science, but kids are always observing what their parents do. And I wanted to be, my dad was kind of this person where I wanted to please. I mean, you want to please people in the beginning, and my dad was hard to please. He's Eastern European, comes from at the time he escaped communism in Poland. He came to the US with my mom. And so it was hard to get the approval from him, but he worked really hard. He did not build a business, but he was an entrepreneur. I told him, I was like, Dad, you should hire people. You're a contractor. You can have somebody else do this stuff. He was like, nah, I'm gonna do it. And he worked really hard, and he still works hard to this day, doing that. And my mom supports him in that business. And I see them growing up as entrepreneurs and always teaching me the value of money, never giving me things, always making me work for it. I think that because they came from a time in communism where nobody works for like you just get handed things, and they absolutely hated that. They always believed in ownership and responsibility and taking things in your own hands and having intrinsic motivation. And I think not playing the victim mentality ever. We're never victims. You're here and it's your fault that this didn't work out. Take ownership like that. Those kind of things growing up were a big thing. And at the time I hated them, but I'm so thankful that I grew up with these different components and factors that helped shape the way I am today.
No, that's great. I mean, yeah, and you're right. I mean, it's so much more it's a common adage, right? Like so much more is caught than taught, right? Like they didn't have to sit you down and okay, well, son, like this is this is what you need to do. You need to work. And it's like, no, you're observing it firsthand, right? Like you have to,
yeah.
And that's so valuable too. Like the ownership piece is huge, right? Like I think too many people are willing to pass that off now where it's like, well,
right.
What was me? And it's like, well, okay, well, you can stay there, but that doesn't benefit you, right? It doesn't take you any further. So like having that mindset of owning whatever the result is, it's okay if I want to make an improvement, I can do that. And that's actually the exciting thing, right? Like you can actually take it further. You can make it better by deciding to, right? So yeah, huge that you picked that up. And this is I've heard it called like the immigrant mindset too, right? Where it's
yep.
like I've seen it firsthand.
Right?
I'm not. I'm saying.
Are your parents?
My grandparents.
Okay, so perfect.
Yeah,
You're immigrant. You come from immigrants. Okay.
Yeah. So, but
cool,
yeah,
man.
but yeah, it was so important to see it, right? So,
right.
But okay, so you're doing kind of the business stuff. You're starting tech companies. You're trying out the corporate world. Like, what brought you into real estate? Like, how did you finally ended up on the destination of real estate, short-term rentals? Like, how did you get from
Yeah.
scrappy young kid who's trying to start businesses and have employees to getting involved in short-term rentals and property management?
Yeah. So at this point, right, I know that I'm not fit for the real world, real world corporate stuff. So I really didn't like it. I actually had journal entries dating back to um, the pivotal moment for me was, and there are multiple pivotal moments, but I think one of the pivotal moments was when I was working for a short-term rental company. And that's where I realized the power of real estate and short-term rentals and the cash flow. It was like 2019. I was a product manager. I helped them scale from 200 to 1,000 plus units. And in that experience, I also realized how shitty corporate life is. So it's like the power of real estate, but I'm making somebody else money. And then also realizing, okay, this is actually a true story. So on the on the day of Christmas Eve, which is a really big deal for Catholics, and my parents are super big Catholics, and they expected me. They were like, "Hey, we want you to come to town for Christmas," and I couldn't because I did not have enough PTO,
Hmm.
and B, I had to work on Christmas Eve. And I remember getting into the office and half the office wasn't there. It was so empty. And most people could take time off because they had PTO or whatever, but some people had to hold down the fort.
Sure.
And they made me work on that day. And I remember just like sitting there, like I knew my parents while I was working till like 6, 7 p.m. on Christmas Eve, and went home alone because I was in Los Angeles. My family's in Chicago.
Hmm.
And I just spent the whole night watching movies and realized that I never ever want to be told what I can do, when I can go, what am I doing? Like I should have been spending time with family. I should have been spending time with people I love and people that I care about instead of working my ass off for a controlled fixed amount of money. And yeah, that was like a pivotal moment. I knew that I had to do something, and thank God they laid me off. Okay, so I didn't get fired there, but they laid me off during COVID. And
Oh,
thankfully I'm blessed because that allowed me to try to find my freedom. And that's when I went through the corporate stuff, but eventually I wanted people to give me a chance to manage their properties. I said, "Hey, I have this management technique from Avance, this big company that I helped scale. Like I know how to manage these properties better than anybody." And nobody gave me a shot. So I decided to buy my own. And I bought my own. I bought in the Smoky Mountains of Tennessee. It was making $33,000 a year before. And I changed nothing about this property. But I, A, operated it better. B, I put the right pricing strategies in place. And then C, I also systemize everything. Marketing, better marketing. So with those three components, I was able to take it from 33,000 to almost double at $60,000 a year. Just on that. So I knew that I had something,
mhm.
right? From there, I met my business partner a couple, whatever months down the line. And he told me, he said, "Hey man, let's work together. I would love to work with you." And I told him, "Hey man, can you just do the whole thing with Wolf of Wall Street where he does the whole like calling the boss and I will quit my job right now to work with you," that kind of thing. And I was like, "Dude, before they fire me, I'm just going to do that right now because I know they're going to fire me eventually. I'm a shitty employee. Can I just quit my job and let's work together. And he said, okay. And this is like one of those things. I quit my job and me and him started buying Airbnbs, and he's got 100+ flips under his belt. I have the Airbnb experience. We buy ugly homes, we turn them beautiful, and then in Joshua Tree, and then we put them up on Airbnb. We refi out, and then we put them up on Airbnb. And we did that with 5 short-term rentals. And then I came across the opportunity to buy a property management company. And so in 1 year, I went from quitting my job January of 2022 to January of 2023, going from one Airbnb that I own in January 2022, sorry. And 1 year later, I have 6 Airbnbs I own and manage 20 for others. Now it's actually, since I wrote that description, it's actually like I got an additional 1 or 2. So it's, and I wrote that not too long ago, but I know that things are growing so fast, and I'm realizing that that's the power of scale and leverage and time. So there's a lot of things that go into that.
That's awesome. I mean, there's a lot to unpack, kind of there in your story, right? Like for one, you're going back to your revelation on that Christmas Eve, right? That's something that a lot of people usually don't. I feel like your shortcut, has been like, man, I'm going to start earlier. Let's get these failures kind of knocked out of the way, right? Like let's get these life lessons and these job lessons and these lessons about, yourself. Let's get those taken care of kind of up front, right? Let's fail forward. And so you're fast tracking your success through the failure. And I think a lot of times, like, people are averse to, to failure because it doesn't feel good, right? So nobody likes to fail. Nobody likes to, be bad at something. But it sounds like you've been able to embrace that and been like, okay, well, no, you know what? I'm a crappy employee. I own that. I understand that. And so it's like, okay, well, let me find a role that can maximize like the skills that I do have and the things that I do enjoy. And I'm going to partner with other people who can bring those different skill sets to the table where you're not strong, let's say, or don't have experience, right? And so that's enabled you to fast track. I mean, there's the simple fact that you own 6, right? And you're how old are you now, Patrick?
26.
So 26. So there's people that I don't think I even bought my first house until my first property was a condo until I was 32.
Oh, wow.
And you can, I mean,
that was a year ago, right?
Yeah. So, but this is what the benefit of again, like finding out the stuff that you don't like and getting those life experiences, getting those job experiences. Again, so many people are willing to stay in that same position that you were, let's say working Christmas Eve, working a 9 to 5, and say, you know what, like this sucks, but I have to stay working here because I want the stability of the paycheck. I can't leave the paycheck.
I hate when people say they have to do something. Like, dude, you have a fucking choice. You just make that choice. I have to is, what you have to do? You have to eat. You have to sleep. You have to do these other things. You don't have to stay at the job you fucking hate. You choose to do that.
No. Yeah. And a lot of, like I said, a lot of times people, I think they do trade, the comfort, for, the stability of having, like I say, the W-2. They're going to trade the time off. They're going to trade the time with the families. They're going to trade the ceiling, right? Like, cause there's going to be limited upside in most any W-2 position, unless you're doing 1099 or sales or some other kind of, and even that will typically have some kind of a ceiling because you're not in control, right? So, but the simple fact, like I said, that you kind of shed that pretty early on and understood that wasn't something that you were, comfortable with. And like I said, that's huge. That's huge, 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 huge. And even the partnership piece, I mean, that's awesome. I mean, there's the fact that you're able to partner with somebody who already had, again, you're pushing so much further down the road, right? Like you're able to glean from the experience of, let's say, the management company. So you're already able to glean from these people who have raised capital. I mean, Avance it's a big company. I mean, how many? I don't even know how many rentals they have, like what their portfolio is. But I mean,
They have
it's
1,000 plus for sure.
yeah. So I mean, so think about that. I mean, you're
Yeah.
able to get from the systems, the experience, from having that many properties, and be able to incorporate that now into your own personal portfolio, and helping others to manage their properties, right? So it's you're not only able to
Right.
benefit yourself, but you're benefiting others, and in that it spills over to success for you, of course.
Yeah, of
Um,
course.
Now you're operating. I know you still have one in the Smokies, and then just the remaining rest of the
Yeah.
management and personal portfolio in Joshua Tree.
Yeah, I'm actually in the middle of selling the one in the Smokies. Hopefully I can
Oh,
1031
okay.
that somewhere in the Joshua Tree area because I just have everything there. I have all the
Yeah.
contractors, I have everything, and just makes it so much easier than having to manage it from far. And I don't know. It's easy to manage it from far, but at the same time, I just have so much equity sitting there. I just want to use it. And so that's kind of what I'm doing. And
How
yeah.
do you how are you navigating? Like obviously this market's been soft for the last stretch now. Is there anything that you guys are able to do? I mean, it's almost better actually that you're coming into kind of a lower period because or the bulk of your management, because I feel like when the people that were in kind of these high watermark years, it's like, dude, I'm got the golden, I got the Midas touch, I got the golden touch. Like you just buy anything out the last couple of years and throw it on Airbnb, it was going to perform, it was going to
Yeah.
outperform. But now it's like you actually have to work, right? Like now you're is where
Oh, it's a
your
great opportunity,
experience.
man. Like, dude, I had 30 leads in the last month, and then I closed on 10, and I chose the 10 that I closed on.
Mm,
So I said no to 1/3 of the people. And the only reason I say no is because I know that my time is valuable, but also the fact that I have choice. And why do I have choice? Is because I'm a damn good manager, and I can basically attest to so many shitty managers out there that are caught with their pants down when things go hard. I mean, yeah, it was easy to make money in Airbnb and anywhere when when everyone was making a lot of money. But the moment that things got a little tough in the market, not everyone can make quick money that way now. People are realizing, crap, I can't even self-manage this thing anymore because I'm losing money. Or,
mhm.
hey, I overextended on my property. I can't make money on this property. So I get all of the benefit of finding amazing deals for myself to buy. I actually am looking at some unique properties that are going way lower than their listing price and snagging them up. On top of that, also have this opportunity of hosts that don't know how to manage and thought they did, or bad managers that thought they knew how to manage, but they don't. And people are leaving those managers and coming to me. And there's this huge opportunity. I don't have anything special. I mean, everything that I know is like now I don't even, this is the crazy thing is I have a team that deploys everything. Like, yes, I have the things in my brain to make it happen, but at the end of the day, it's the team that's executing it. If I can teach my team, if I can teach Filipino VAs how to make listings better, how the training behind, how to do anything within the company, right? Like we document everything. We try to document everything to make it so I can go. I told my team, I said, I want to make sure that I can, if I need to step up for whatever reason and clean a house, I want to document it just well enough that I can go into the house and clean that damn thing. Like that's how well I want to document. I want everyone to know everyone, like anybody can step in at any given point and take that role. So that's creating good business, right? And so this is like a business that I'm creating. And yeah, anyways, I got off track. The point of this is that anybody can do it. Anybody can be a good manager, a good co-host. It's not rocket science.
Mhm.
It's just one of those things you just do it and then you just do it. It's not it's I actually here's a good story. Here's actually a reason. I actually had somebody I was hiring for the operations manager role. And I had I had two individuals, one that had an amazing experience, had all the experience in the world, worked for Avance actually, and was doing the same role that I needed her to do it for my company. I brought her in. She quit after 2 days. Brought in a second person. I thought to myself, okay, I set the expectation. You're gonna be whatever, dealing with things, blah blah blah. Here's how you do things. He's very smart guy, super intellectual, knows how to do everything. I'm like, dude, this guy's gonna crush it. Quits after 2 days. Says, man, dude, this is not for me. Now, the girl that I currently have, she's crushing it right now. And when I hired her, she didn't have any of the experience. She had none of it. She had nothing. I mean, she had some things that were kind of relevant, but not really. Like, she hasn't really done what we need her to do. But she and I kind of dismissed it a little bit. I was like, oh, she was like, I'm interested. I'm like, a lot of people are interested. I get it. But then she sent me a deck showing why she's interested and sold me. And I was like, this is amazing. That's initiative. That's what I need. And I hired her, and she's been so proactive, super communicative, cares about it, passionate. That's all. And all the skills, like, she's learning as she goes. I mean, she's been a cleaner before, but she's really learning this business through and through. And who cares if she's never done it before? It's not a complex business. It's not hard to do. You know, anybody that is working a W-2 job or doing anything can do this on the side and then replace their job and then go and be financially free. It's like I have helped dozens of people become financially free through short-term rental investing with STR Nation. I've done it time and time again. I've had students that had 15, 20 properties and working 60 hours a week on their full-time job. It really doesn't, I mean, not to say that's an extreme case. He systemized things and he really built his business right. But my point is, it's not complex. It's very simple, actually. It just requires work. And I think a lot of things in real estate are like that, where you just follow what works. You know, it's like multifamily. You were just telling me before the show, you're like, yeah, we had a bunch of multifamily people on and it's kind of dry. Yeah, no shit. Because there's a method. You do this and it works. You just follow the steps. And there's just people just don't want to do them.
Right. Yeah.
You know, people don't want to take the effort to find the deal. It's like, it's very simple to find a deal. It's hard. I'm not going to say it's easy, but it's simple. I've had the biggest idiots in the world get big multifamily assets and make crazy money on it. What separates this intelligent person versus this dumb? It doesn't matter. It's just the work that goes into it. Yeah. Yeah. What do you think about that? Do you agree about that?
Well, you've kind of boiled down to, and I think what works, is like, let's say, the system, right? Like like, you know, like how you're saying, right? Like, okay, well, hey, we can teach you the skills, but if you have the system that you can slot them into, then that's really where it's going to shine through, right? Two, like you mentioned earlier about, like, let's say some of the students or some of the people that you're kind of guiding through that process. It's like, well, you know, if you have a business that's scalable because you do have, you know, the right systems around you, the right systems and processes, you can plug that. You can plug that into your existing life, right? And not become, because I think what people are trying to avoid is another 60-hour job, right? People don't want to have to do that, right? That's stressful, right? It's like, well, I'm already stressed out of my 9 to 5. Like, why would I want to go and create another full-on job that I have to go commit another 50, 60 hours a week to, or whatever? Like, I don't have the time, right? I've got family, I've got other obligations, I've got things that I want to spend my time on. But if you're able to kind of help them through that process, right? Help them, I would say, hey, look, this is all you need to do. You need to slot A into A and B into B, right? And you know, you can kind of take it from there. That takes off the stress of, okay, man, I've got to go do this and I've got to do X, Y, Z, right? Like, having that set in place really can allow really anybody to succeed, right? You said it's not rocket science, and it really isn't. I mean, this holds true for most all of real estate and in general. It's not, it's not an overly complicated business to be. I mean, there's a million and one facets to real estate, but most of it is not overly complex, as long as you have kind of the right components in place, right, or the right people around you that understand what needs to be done, right. So no, that's great. That's great, and I'm glad that you're helping other people too, right? Like it's not all. I think too, when we focus on how we can benefit others, like you can't help but to benefit from that, right? You're helping to provide show people options in terms of financial freedom. And honestly, I'll be honest, like a lot of it is just it's a mindset, right? You're helping them to see beyond the W-2 or beyond the limitations of their current situation. Say,
Right.
no, look, there's more out there. You can choose that. But some people, they don't get that right off the bat, right? Like they didn't have the benefit of you and kind of you finding that so early. Like I said, there's people that will be working at they're 60 years old and they have that lonely moment at Christmas because they're still working that same job and they never have that revelation. And like I said, the fact that you had that so early on it's massive.
Well,
And
Steve,
hugely
you also
beneficial.
had that also had that realization early on too, right? Like,
Oh, it's a little later for me.
comparatively.
So yeah, a little later for me, but I mean, I'm thankful that that happened when it did, right? And
Yeah.
and this is a nice thing, right? Like let's say, seeing you how much you've progressed, let's say in a year, when you've actually gotten, real traction, I guess, with the business. Not saying that everything that led up to that wasn't feeding into your success now, right? Like
Right, right, right.
your employment with Avance and the prior experiences and obviously the partnerships. But you can scale, right? You're somebody who just gets started now. Let's say they're 50. Let's say they've worked at the same job, they hate it, and they're like, "Ah, it's too late. Like, how can I build a portfolio? I'm already 50 years old. Retirement age is let's say 10 years away, right? 10, 15 years away. How can I start now?" And it's like, whoa,
Right.
your story is inspirational. It's like, well, dude, you just scaled up the six
Yeah.
properties in a year and managing a portfolio for other people. I can guarantee, like, even just the six properties alone, like if they're performing, it's life altering income for
Oh,
the vast
huge,
majority of most people.
huge.
That's game changing. I mean,
Yeah.
one or two can be game changing for short term rentals, like the income that they can generate. I mean, this is the
Yeah.
appeal, right? Is their outsized performance. So, to those of let's say those of our listeners thinking, well, man, I'm not in my 20s anymore. I'm not like Patrick. It's too
Right.
late for me. I can't start. It's like, no, no, no. It's never too late. Like again, you have the system. If you can plug into it, and you just need to be shown what to do, it's absolutely possible. I mean, so much change can happen within a year. Don't underestimate that,
Oh
right?
yeah. Oh yeah. And at the end of the day, like, yeah, I get it. I'm in a different place, but I leveraged a lot. Anything I didn't have, I found it. I didn't have capital. I found it. If you have capital, but you don't have time, then you find the time. You find somebody with time. I had time, so you could find me and you could just have me do all the work, So it's like there's always a way to go. It's just you're making excuses at that point. And I will say that at the end of the day, for everybody, it's the same equation, right? So I've talked to so many students, so many clients, so many people, and they ask me, okay, how do I plan for, like, the first thing I do is honestly I sit them down and I go over it's the same thing, and I've done it with 50-year-olds, I've done it with all the way up to 50 something, but as young as 22, and I basically sit them out and say, hey, listen, it's going to be like this. You have your livelihood. This is what expenses you have in your life currently. That's that the first level of financial freedom is replacing your current level of expenses, like your current lifestyle. So for different people, that's different things. So some people have kids and families, so that's going to be a little bit more. Some people like me was very low. I had $2,000 a month. That's the one I needed, 2,500. I hit that with my first short-term rental. I quit my job. But some people, that takes a little longer. So that's the first level of financial freedom, is just taking that time and getting that time back. Now, let's say there's a partner involved, right? The first step would probably get enough money for the partner to leave. So your wife could be the first person, or whatever the case partnership is. And then the second partner leaves their job, and then you're full time, you're supporting with the short-term rentals. Now it goes into second phase of financial freedom, which is a comfortable amount. So whatever that number is per month is, let's just say comfortably how much you think you need to live, and just and whatever. And then you have the third level of financial freedom, which is like, I don't need to worry about money anymore. So I have people envision like, what does day-to-day look like? Are your kids in private school? Are you waking up next to your spouse? Are you traveling the world like Steve is? And, going to all these different places. People think it's expensive to travel the world. Steve, is it expensive to travel the world?
No, it can be much more affordable for sure than people think. Yeah.
Like, you don't have to spend $400 a night hotels all the time, $500, $600 a night hotels. You can figure different ways to make it work. And so travel, like when you really think about it, if you're making like 25K a month, travel really isn't that much of a dent into that income overall. And so I think when I realized, I want to make $1 million a month. It's like, why? Like my number's 100K a month, because I realized that $1 million a month is like, why even have that much? I don't need that. Like, I wrote down on a sheet all of my goals, all of my bucket list items, 300. I got challenged by my mentor to write down 300. I put down 300. And then he said, hey, go through that list and notate which ones require money and which ones require time. And it's funny because majority of the things on my list require more time than it does money. Mm-hmm. Like there's just all these travel things. It's like, yeah, jet skiing in Hawaii, whatever. It's going to be like what? Like $150? Sure. To rent a jet ski. You're like, sure. Prices have gone up. But in general, you get the idea, right? And so that like blew my mind, because I think so many people just see these like people flexing their money on Instagram or Facebook or whatever, and it's deceiving, and it's just fake. It's just so fake. It's not really the reality of things. Yeah. I mean, that's what I think.
But yeah, you're mentioning that, like, once people can actually pare down to say, okay, well, what do I need to replace, or what would I want? Then it becomes a little bit easier to chunk down, right? Like I say, okay,
exactly.
Well, hey, you know what? One property can take care of this, right? Or two properties, gosh, we can retire, your spouse, or and it becomes easier to kind of think about it that way, right? You help to chunk down, versus climbing Everest with your goals and say, well, how that's so far away. That's such a massive undertaking. No. It's
really not.
How do you eat an elephant, right? It's like one bite at a time, right? Like you just have to kind of chunk it down so that it becomes more reasonable. And then once you have a system in place to be able to, okay, well, hey, this is how you go out and acquire it. This is how you go out and, manage it. That kind of deal. Then it becomes so much more important. Oh, it's not complicated. Yeah, exactly. Right. That's what we were saying.
Yeah. Steve, what was your experience with that? How was that for you when you quit? I don't know what your situation was, but
the biggest one I think the biggest change for me was replacing, just like how you mentioned too, like, hey, what's your biggest expense? For me, it's like most people for most other people, like the biggest expense is housing, right? So once you kind of solve the housing, that makes a massive impact. So house hacking for me was huge. House hacking through short-term rental was like massive. So especially in an expensive market, right? Like if you're in California, or you're in, the Bay Area, or if you're in like Hawaii, like me, or New York, or any of these other, and really anywhere in the country, if you can knock out your housing expense, well, now you have capital that's freed up to go do other things with. Either you buy back your time, or you can go invest in other opportunities. And that's what we did. Knocking out our housing payment, that opened up massive doors for us to go start investing, because it's like, hey, if you don't have to worry about a $4,000 a month housing cost, which is very common here in Hawaii, well, man, that's almost $50,000 a year that we have to go and put into investment opportunities, businesses, that kind of stuff, where it can generate more income that would easily that can start to scale, right? And especially, okay, hey, if I brought you 50 grand, Patrick, and okay, well, great. Yeah, let's go put it into a deal, right? Let's go do a BRRRR, or let's go find some opportunities. And now we can make that seed grow, right? And that's what we did. So, but it starts the same way. It starts just like how you mentioned, where okay, well, what kind of expenses do we need to knock out in order to buy back that time to get the freedom?
Right.
At the end of the day, that's really what I think most people will ultimately come to. It's like, well, you come to the point where you're trying to get your time back. We can make more money. The money's kind of not the question. It's really the time.
Right.
We can't get that back. So, but well, I'm gonna transition us now to, you know, as you mentioned earlier too. I mean, I could stay on with you all day, but
Yeah.
I want to be mindful of your time and you know, be respectful of that. But I'm gonna transition to, you know, a part in our show where we call the fire round. Is that something you're game for?
Let's do it, baby. I'm ready.
All right. Well, what is the best book that you recommend other than Rich Dad, Poor Dad?
I love that last part. Other than
Yeah.
Rich Dad Poor Dad, how to influence people, how to win friends and influence others.
Yep.
That is I love that book. It changed my life.
And I will tell you guys, having, like I said, having met Patryk multiple times and had conversations, this guy right here takes that to heart, man. How to win friends and influence others. Easiest friend maker right there in the world.
Thanks, bro. I appreciate it, man.
That's actually probably your next, like the next question here. That may be my answer for you, but you can feel free to answer whatever.
Yeah.
So the next question is, what's your superpower?
Oh yeah. I think my superpower. That's actually a good question. I like that. Let me think about it. I think my superpower is leadership.
Okay. Yeah. Very good.
Influence.
Yeah. No, I think that's huge. And like I said, to me, like I said, outside looking in, it's the personable piece.
Yeah.
Again, and that's going to lead directly into kind of the leadership component as well.
Right.
So very good. Well, so far in your you know, your young budding career here, what's the biggest lesson that you've learned? Like I said, I feel like you fast tracked a lot of stuff. But what is the biggest lesson that you think that you've learned, you know, along the way?
Yeah. So let me say a little story. So when I started my first company, I was making $40,000 a year, and that's impressive to some people. My peers were also making somewhere around there. And then this new thing came out. It's called the multiverse. It was like this new concept for Minecraft servers at the time. And instead of jumping on that and trying it out and adapting, I decided to stick to what I do and not take that risk. And that risk costed me a lot of money. I could have made $1 million plus that year as a 17-year-old, $1 million plus that year. But I didn't take that opportunity. And because of that, to this day, I always promise myself that I'm never going to try to miss out on something. I'm going to at least try to understand it and find somebody to execute on different things, or at least stay informed and adapt with my business and take those risks. So take risks. That's a big one.
No, that's actually huge.
Risks. Yeah.
That's the disclaimer, right? No, that's huge. And like I said, I think you've lived that out. Like hearing your story, I think you embody that.
Yeah.
Like without
quit my job, tried it. I don't know if it was going to work, but I take these big risks because life is so short. I already feel time ticking. You know,
again, you have perspective far beyond your years, my friend. you really do, because like I said, I've met plenty of people that just do not come to that realization until I'm decades beyond you. So I mean, that's a huge thing that you've come to that. You know, you're, like I said, you're mature in that regard, like well beyond your years.
Thank you,
for
man.
sure.
Appreciate it.
Well, for the busy working professional that's trying to work towards financial freedom, just like we're talking about, you know, what advice do you have for them?
Don't wait.
Yeah.
Take action. And I think here's one piece of advice I just give to everybody is, you know what you should be doing. do that thing that you know you should be doing, but
Mm.
you've been avoiding because you're trying to figure out what hot tip is gonna get you to the next level. It's just procrastination at that point. We just got to
Yeah,
do it.
that's good. That's good. Yeah, that's good. Don't wait. Yep, I like it. Um, well, if our for our audience or our listeners, they want to get to know you a little bit more, they want to reach out to you. What's the best platforms? What's the best social, or how can they get in touch with you? They say, hey, Patryk, I want to work with you. I want to manage, or I want you to manage my properties, or they just want to connect with you, pick your brain, whatever. What's the best way for them to get in touch with you?
Yeah, pick my brain. I answer people all the time. I get people. I have all sorts of resources. Happy to help with anybody that resonates with my story or needs help with anything they want to accomplish. One way is if you are into short-term rentals, then STR Nation Facebook group is an amazing resource, and I run that group. It's great. And then my Instagram is my number one. You can contact me at Patryk, Patryk, spelled a little differently, _ SWIETEK. As long as you get the first name, you'll be able to find it. So reach out to me. Happy to chat.
Awesome. Well, hey, thanks so much for jumping on today with me. I know our listeners have gotten a ton of value out of it, and of course, if you guys have questions, reach out to Patryk. Check out the Facebook group. If you guys are interested in investing with us, go of course to tricityequity.com to learn more, to connect with other like-minded investors in terms of multifamily. You can join our Facebook group as well, Honolulu Multifamily and More. We have a little bit more of an emphasis on multifamily. And of course, that's here based in Honolulu. If you found value in the podcast, of course, please subscribe. We'd love a 5-star review, and definitely would love if you share with your friends, your family, anybody that you think would find value in the podcast. I mean, to have somebody with the life experience, like I said, like guests like Patryk, make sure that you're sharing the episode. And also, too, don't forget, we do have our second annual conference coming up June 29th through July 1st, the Hawaii Millionaire Mindset Conference, happening over in Waimea on the Big Island, the beautiful Mauna Resort. I was actually just over on the Big Island, so it's a beautiful, beautiful place. If you want to learn about business, real estate investing, network with some of the brightest people in the industry, make plans to join us. All right, guys. Well, we're going to be signing off.
Very enticing.
Yeah.
I'm already thinking about my margarita on the beach while learning real estate. That sounds like a blast.
Well, in Hawaii, it's more, you might have, maybe you'll switch the margarita to a Mai Tai, but you can have both.
That's right.
All right. All right. Well, right on. Well, thanks again for tuning in, guys, and we will see you in the next episode. Aloha.